You don't have to. We live? Oh, we are live from Win the Storm, Storm Venture Groups 2023, March 15th through the 17th. I got my good man, Dan Dan Z. We met him out at Door to Door Con in Salt Lake City, Utah. Shoot, that was a long time ago. I think maybe not that long ago. How long ago was that?
It was like 2-3 months.
2-3 months.
Which in this industry seems like forever.
It really does. That's a good point that you brought that up. But we've been on the road since then. I don't know if you know that or not. We've been at we were at Door to Door Con. We went to SRC. Oh man, where did we just come from? IRE. Now we're at Win the Storm. We're all over the place right now. The team's doing great. And I'll be honest with you, before we get this thing started, I want to give a big shout out to everybody at home at the TC Backer family that continues to keep working hard so us knuckleheads can come out here and act all crazy and introduce people that are doing great things in our industry. And also big shout out to Mike, Ippy, Vic, and Javi, and Glenn when Glenn's with us, because without everybody in the TC Backer behind the Tool Bell family, we couldn't do this. This would not be possible. So thank you everybody for co-signing my shit and thinking that this was a good idea for us to do things like this, because it is, like we spoke about earlier today, a platform for people to get on social media, spread the message, spread the word of what it is that you're doing. And like you were talking about earlier, what did you say to me? Was it yesterday or today? Like the last time you came on the show?
I mean, we talked about a few things.
We did a lot. I should have been more specific. Sorry.
No, it's good. And I want to say thank you for having me again on the show. It's an outstanding platform. And to hear the story of how you guys started from your iPhone, right? And it's amazing how, if you stay consistent with something, all of a sudden you have the best damn podcast booth in the whole Win the Storm show, this is the largest storm event for contractors, PAs, attorneys in the country, right? And you guys make a big stand here, and I appreciate you having us on.
Yeah, thank you very much, and thank you for wanting to come back on the show again. I appreciate, especially when I'm going to call you a co-host. As co-host, want to come back on the show because let's face it, I want this to be our show. I want this to be the industry show. So when somebody comes on a guest, I want them to feel like they're our co-host. Like, this is your show. This is your time to shine, whether it be 7 minutes or 15 minutes or 60 minutes. Like, we want you to have that 60-minute of fame, right? Like to get out what it is that you're doing or what new products that you might be launching, or just share your story, like your backstory, like how the roofing industry found you, and what trials and errors and tribulations and learning lessons and experiences that you experienced and felt along this journey that we're all on. Because let's face it, there's no graduation date here. And I think that's where a lot of people get shit twisted, because like you touched on earlier, you have to stay consistent. I had a great conversation this morning with Mike Hammer Martinez, who I believe is like the MC for Win the Storm for Anthony. And not to get off topic here or take the spotlight off you, but
no, you're good.
The one thing that Mike the Hammer, and it's funny because you're the second one that said talked about staying consistent. Well, that's the only thing I can chalk this up to. We started on an iPhone 9, okay, in some dude's basement who did bong hits all day, every day, right? And I don't smoke weed anymore, so it was kind of uncomfortable, but I did it anyhow. So that was me stepping outside of my comfort zone, right? I got to get comfortable with that. So I thought, you know what, let's do this. So we wanted a way to find, we were building these gazebos, and it was like, how are we going to promote our charitable events? Like, we really want people to know what we're doing. So we built these gazebos. We were auctioning them off at a local builder show. So we were like, hey, come on down. Went live at the home show. The home show ended. We were like, okay, so what are we going to do now? I was like, fuck it. Let's just keep doing this. So every single Wednesday night, honestly, I don't even know how many we've done. I think tonight's episode 168. I said that last week, so I apologize. So last week was actually episode 167 of our regularly scheduled Wednesday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Oh, before I forget, and we'll get back to you. I swear to God, I won't hold you hostage. We are going to be broadcasting live from Win the Storm at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. They closed the doors. Anthony Mahala and Remington, some dude fucking named Remington, is coming on with Matthew Mahala. He looked like a good dude, and I really like his name because I like Remington rifles. So we're gonna let him on the show tonight with Anthony. Oh, I'm sorry, Matthew. Anthony. Anyhow,
Very good.
Danny Danny Z, my man. Alpha Army.
Alpha Army.
What the hell is that?
So that's our brand.
Okay.
We're here to promote, and drive a mission. And our mission is to change lives. Before I get into that, though, I do want to say the Win the Storm event is incredible, right? What was awesome this morning was a parade to recognize first responders. And I think that, especially in the day-to-day life, a lot of people don't recognize the people that put themselves on the line for advocacy for, people in disaster recovery, right? And so you had military and fire and police and then you had contractors. And contractors also, they don't get the recognition, right? These guys are going out and fixing the destruction. Right. And what was also cool, which was unique, was, and this was where we came in on the adjusting side of our business as a policy advocate part of the parade. So it was cool to get, be recognized for, we do a lot of the behind the scenes negotiating with insurance companies to make sure that these policyholders are getting indemnified and getting the recovery from these disasters.
Okay.
So it's really cool for Anthony to set this up and have us do that. And, you had General Flynn up there and
yes.
Kind of leading the charge there. It was a cool experience. And I think that it really opens people's eyes. I hope it does anyway, to that, there's a lot of people that play a role when a disaster strikes, right? They even had the food companies that one of them, they travel around the world to disasters. They've fed 10 million people. Like it's incredible the kind of effort that goes in. And I think that a lot of times people don't recognize that level of effort that's going on.
You're right. And that's a good point too. That's a good aspect of, showing notoriety to those that most people don't even think about. Because if you think, my first impression of first responders is ambulance drivers, nurses, doctors, firemen, policemen, things like that. I don't even know if I've actually considered us contractors as a first responder. I feel like my mic's not turned on. It is? Did you just turn it down? Yeah, I don't hear it in my headphones. Sorry. Yeah, I never thought of contractors or food, preparators. What do they have, like food trucks? Do you know any more about that?
I'm not, I don't know their whole business model, but I know that they've helped a lot of people.
Okay.
And it's overlooked, and it's unfortunate because there's people that literally stick themselves on the line every day for people that are in that distress. So anyway, pivoting away from that, because obviously we can talk about the first responders all day, and it was great. It was a great experience to be recognized, and General Flynn up there, and I think Anthony does a great job in creating a hell of an event.
Yeah,
to bring contractors all together.
For sure.
I brought also a whole group of our team members here, so there's 12 of us total. And yesterday there was a bonus day, which was water mitigation, fire, estimate writing, supplements, etc. Right. So I split our team up and put some people here and put some people there, and they thought it was incredible. They got so much value out of the show. I wasn't a guy to go to these shows. And it wasn't until recently someone said, "Hey, you got to start going and putting yourself out there and get in front of stuff."
For sure.
And so we started doing that and bringing our team. And this was a big one because we're from Phoenix. So we flew 12 people, right, staying at the Fort Lauderdale Hilton right here down the street, and giving our team a great experience. So it's a team builder and all education, right? And then they get to go have some fun in their downtime and play a little bit, which
I love that.
They don't go too crazy, but
yeah.
Enough to enjoy it, and create a nice little team environment. So I think it was outstanding. So yeah, Alpha Army, we represent a movement of building people, and our companies that we operate is a public adjuster that's licensed in Arizona. We're also working on our licensing in multiple states. We're going to hopefully get all 50 here soon. And then we're a general contractor and a solar provider. So we tie those in. We also sell windows. We also sell HVAC. Whatever we can tie into the financing. I mean, solar financing, I know there's been some changes recently in the industry, but solar financing is the best financing for home improvement products ever, right? And I think that a lot of contractors are behind the eight ball on. They don't understand how to leverage that kind of financing. And it's funny when I talk about financing, because when I started my first construction company, we didn't have, no bank would give you financing. Right. So everybody was cash.
Yes.
Right. And then as soon as we got financing, all of a sudden everybody financed their jobs. I'm like, no, I want, the cash was better.
Right.
But you want to have that outlet for financing.
Of course. And what's funny about financing too, like everyone finances everything, whether it be your home mortgage, whether it be a car, whether it be everything. Every other industry has financing, right? Every other industry has financing. It seems like roofing has been one of those last things where it comes to home improvement, because I think people were even financing kitchens, bathrooms, basements, things like that. But roofing, I don't think anyone's really thought about how important your roof is first and foremost, because it protects most people's biggest investments and their families, right? To stay healthy and safe. So why wouldn't you want to finance a roof or solar, right? Especially with the rising cost of energy right now. I know for us, we try to help homeowners out. We try to match or exceed their electric bill, right? As far as the array of solar that we would put on their roof. But so one of the things when you were talking there, I was thinking about the culture that you were talking about your team, by bringing your team to something like this. That's kind of how like this tour started back in November. About 16 of us, we brought 16 of us from our construction company to RoofCon, and the fellowship and the camaraderie that we experienced
that comes from that
that comes from that, right? Traveling with each other, experiencing the same things, listening to some of the keynote speakers and some of the breakouts and stuff, and the things that the team learned. It was so awesome when we got back home to listen to them talk amongst themselves about the things that they learned
100%.
and listen to, which in turn made them better people, which then in turn made our company better.
It's amazing the kind of what exposure does, right? Like you don't know what you don't know.
Yes.
And when you go to events like this, and even for us, as you know, we're a leader in Arizona as a policy holder advocate, a public adjuster, and you know, being around attorneys who specialize in areas like Florida, where it's one of the largest storm markets in the country, you know, other PAs that are in the industry, we learn so much. It's invaluable. Like you can't put a price tag on it. And then to rub elbows with some of the, you know, big names in the industry that have been doing it for so long, I think it's very important that people get their teams involved, right? So like the first few events I went to myself, and I was like, whoa, there's so much information here. Like I'm like, we need to bring the team. It's one thing for me to soak a bunch of stuff in and then spit it at everybody. It's another thing when your team starts to be involved. And like you said, and then you go back to the office and they're talking about it. It's incredible.
It is incredible. It's a good feeling. It's a good feeling. And that's the thing too. Like you said, Jana and I, and it's funny, this is a funny story. Our first conference was Win the Storm Conference, which was, I mean, we've been to events and small things, but our first real experience was Win the Storm. I want to say it was in Vegas. I don't know how many years ago it was, but it was a game changer for her and I to go home, because we thought we did things the way we didn't know what we didn't know, like you touched on, right? So we were doing things the way that we figured them out, because like I told you earlier, we're a first generation roofing contractor. You demand. So we're a first generation roofing contractor. So whatever we learned is basically through trial and error and by mistakes, right? Was the only way. We came here and got to listen to a lot of great keynote speakers, listen to a lot of great breakouts. Like that's all we did. It was almost like we went back to school for a minute. And like we were a sponge. When we showed up, it's giving me goosebumps. And I'll probably say that 100 times throughout the course of the week, because this shit gets me jacked up. Because we get to share this with everybody else out there today, because we have a platform we can do that from. Anyhow, so now here we are, we're participating, full circle, comes back, right? 5-6 years later, come back. Now we're one of the vendors, I think one of the best vendors, by the way, here at
hey, this setup right here is crazy. I mean, you have a full studio. Like there's no doubt you have one of the best setups in the entire event.
Right. So full circle, here we are. We're able to give back. You know what I mean? Give back to the conference instead of just taking from, because that's the thing. If we want to keep it, we must give this thing away. Right. So everything that has been so freely given to us, which is mostly knowledge, right? Whether I picked up a book, listened to a podcast, walked in there, listened to a keynote speaker. If I want to keep this information, whether I take it back to my team and give it to them, bring them here, let them experience this, right? It's like that full circle thing that I was talking about. Like, so in order for me to keep this knowledge, this podcast, our business, my family together, right? Like whatever has been so freely given to me, I have to give it away in order to keep it.
You know, that's a great concept. And it wasn't actually until recently that I felt that way, where I understand how, you know, certain people, they go through their life and they find success in whatever way they find it. Some tie themselves to people that are successful. That's probably a really good way to do it. Some pound and fall down, get up, fall down, get up over and over. But either way, you really learn once you start to, you know, have what I guess success is relative, but relative success. And the responsibility that comes with that is to give it to others, is to share and to help bring people up. Going back to the Alpha Army, that's literally our mission, is to build an army of people who, and we'll go out the term alpha. It's an interesting term because
I want to hear it.
Yeah, because people look at it different ways depending on where they're from or what they've heard, and a lot of times that word it's one of those trigger words, right? It creates a negative connotation sometimes for certain people. And I was on a podcast similar where we were actually talking about that, and I brought that up. I said, what do you feel an alpha is? Right? Like what is an alpha to you? And the common response of real leaders is someone who is a real leader, someone who puts others before themselves, someone who takes, like, if you're a family man and you know you're the man of the house, like you take that responsibility, and you take responsibility not just for your family, but for the people you care about, your employees, your team members, your everybody. And that's a real alpha. Not someone who bangs their chest and screams and gets drunk that's not an alpha. An alpha is someone who takes 100% responsibility for themselves and the people around them to bring them up. That's a real alpha. That's a leader.
I love that. No, that's good, man. And it's because you're right. That's one of those words that can be misinterpreted as dominating, right? I think that's the first thing that pops in somebody's mind. Oh, so he's a dominator. You know, he's going to come in here and tell me what to do all the time, opposed to giving back and educating and parenting, right? You're talking about someone who bosses up and does leadership when nobody else wants to.
Correct.
Right? Nurture somebody, embrace somebody, right? As painful as that might be sometimes, we have to encourage, whether it be our family, our kids, our wife, right? We have to encourage, we have to embrace our teammates. Sometimes they come up with good ideas. We might think they're bad, but we have to embrace that, right? And even if it's right or wrong, if it's a good idea, great. And sometimes we have to let them make bad decisions as well, right? So they learn and we learn, because the only way that we're going to figure this thing out is by doing it wrong, sometimes several times.
Well, hopefully you can help, you know, once you've seen the train hitting stuff, you go, hey, there's a train,
right?
Don't let me pull you out of the way,
right?
Yeah, but sometimes people need to, you know, learn those lessons on their own.
Of course,
you know,
it's the best way.
It's also I'm going up here in a little bit.
Yes,
on the main stage.
Let's talk about that.
And so we're going to be talking about CEOs, and this is something that I've also been challenged with, because I'm the CEO of our organization, and I'm very passionate, as you can tell. I care a lot. I've worked really hard. I went door to door for many years to build up the skill sets and leadership skills and all those things. And even with all that and over a decade in the industry, and there's still so far to go for really anyone, right? And it's so important to continue to learn and grow. And that's why when we go to these events, it's not just for your team to grow, it's for you to grow. Right. So everyone it's all about growth, right? And again, going back to Alpha Army, growth. And so I'm going up there to talk about what it means to be a CEO. And to me, a CEO is the same thing as the Alpha in our Alpha Army, program. It's a leader. It's someone who's going to take full responsibility. If you lose, it's your fault. If you win, it's your fault. And a lot of times what a CEO wants to do is they want to take the credit and not the accountability.
Yeah.
And it's so important that you take the accountability, probably more than the credit.
Yes.
Because really it's your team that does it. It's not you.
Yes.
The CEO is a visionary. The CEO says, hey, I have an idea. I know we can do this and make this happen. Just like the Win the Storm event. Anthony is the CEO of the Win the Storm event. It was his idea. It was his mission. And he said, hey, there's no way you're going to put an event on, get 10,000 people in a room, rent out this massive conference center, put all these, situate all these different companies, the breakouts, the 6-7 different breakouts, ballrooms with speakers going on, all this stuff without a great team behind it.
Absolutely.
Right? And that is the key mark of the CEO is you're responsible for the good, the bad, and the ugly.
I agree.
And you have to take the responsibility ugly.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, give the team the wins. Don't take the responsibility for the wins. Take the responsibility of the failures, right? And like you touched on, like Anthony could have tried to pull this off himself, but it would have been so overwhelming and there wouldn't have been enough hours in the day. As a CEO, as a leader, as a manager, whatever you want to call it, whatever the catchphrase is today, I'm just going to use leader, right? Or CEO. Let's use CEO, okay? Because I'm tired of fucking the word leader. CEO, right? So if you're a CEO, what happens is you got all these great ideas, but what you have to do as a great CEO is find the right people, put them in the seats on the bus, right? In order for something to come to fruition, right? Because you can't do it yourself. One, you'll burn yourself out. Two, there's not enough hours in the day. And three, you become the bottleneck, right? Because years ago, and I talk about this quite often, is when I became the bottleneck of our organizations. Right. So I'm screaming, grow, 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 go, go, go. And it's like, as I'm pointing the finger, I had 3 pointing back at me. I literally did. You know what I mean? And I didn't know that I needed to delegate certain things, but you got to master delegating, when to do it, right? When to do it. Now, don't do it too soon, right? Because I think that's one of these work smart, fucking not harder things that everybody lives by nowadays. Right, which I don't fully believe in. I do believe that
those people who say they just don't want to work.
Exactly, right. I don't live by that. It's not my philosophy, obviously. But you got to learn how to choose the right people and learn how to measure their strengths and weaknesses as well. Just because you hired somebody to do a specific job, right? That might not be a good fit for them. That doesn't mean necessarily you get rid of them. They may have other strengths. Right. You just got to make sure you have that right person in the right seat, right person, right job. You can have the right person, wrong job.
You know, it's crazy when you were saying that. I was just thinking recently how I was the bottleneck.
Mm-hmm.
You know, someone who's, you know, I want to do everything. I want to make sure that every single person in the company is being taken care of. I want to do all these things. And I was the bottleneck. And once I learned that I needed to bring in people that were better than me, you know, I'm good at what I'm good at, right? And there's things that, you know, I'm not so good at. And that's one of the hardest parts of a leader, CEO, or any of those executive positions, is that to say, look, there's things that I'm not good at.
Admitting that, dude.
And
it's hard.
And bringing in someone who can. And so we did that. And I mean, within weeks, I saw, wow, I was terrible at that job. What that person's done in 2 weeks would have took me years to figure out how to get that done. And that's from, you know, pushing the ego aside and saying, hey, this is not about me. This is about this team. And if I'm a real CEO or leader of this company, then my responsibility is get the hell out of the way and bring people in that are better than me at those positions.
Absolutely.
Right. And that was hard.
Yeah. And you have to master that craft too. Like you said, you got to get the ego out of the way, right? You got to get the ego out of the way. You got to learn how to ask questions, keep an open mind, and surround yourself around people that are smarter than you, right? Put your ego down. I might not be so good at these things, or there's other things in the business that I need to learn to work on, that there may be some things that I need to get better at as for myself as the CEO, right? Whether, I don't know what that might be, but whatever that might be, but there's a difference between working in the company and working on the company, right? There's integrators. I don't know if I like that catchphrase yet or not, but there are people that, like you said, there's a visionary and there's integrators, right? So you have a great vision, but you got to find the right people that will actually end up doing 90% of that work under your direction or guidance. But a lot of times your direction or guidance may become micromanaging. Right. So there's a fine line there too. And I still suffer from that. I mean, I do. I'm not perfect. I'm by no means the perfect CEO. You know, I make mistakes. I say stupid shit. I get upset. I get butt hurt. My ego gets in the way. I do all of those things. But the difference between today and 10 years ago is I identify it a lot quicker than I did before. If I say something stupid, within about 5 to 7 minutes, I go back and I'm like, look, that was dumb. That was super fucking dumb.
It's hard
right?
to do that.
It is.
It is hard. It's hard to see yourself doing the wrong things, right? And then being able to correct those.
Yeah.
And it was so hard for me, like to you know, and I guess I'm a young CEO in some ways, but experienced in others, and ego's a big part, especially for sales guys.
It's huge.
Right? Sales guys have the biggest egos on the planet. They're walking around, they you know, their shit don't stink. And it's so hard as a salesperson starting a business, having some success, to not allow that ego to eat at you, because that is what destroys an organization.
Absolutely.
And it's you know, so that's been a big learning experience for us in our organization, is our leadership identifying where the strengths are.
Yes.
But more importantly, where the weaknesses are.
Right.
Move out of the way. Let's bring people in that are better.
Yes.
And that's another thing I wanted to talk about, was scalability. Like, how do you scale an organization, right? We have a lot of, it's one thing to be a one-man band, right? Like, my dad's a contractor. He's a plumber by trade. So, you know, when I was growing up, I watched him, and he was underneath people's houses. I thought it was a horrible job. I never wanted to be in the construction industry. And not just for that reason. It wasn't the hard work necessarily, but it was the feast or famine that came with, you know, the retail contracting, where if the economy was good, people were calling him, he had jobs, he was working. And you know, plumbers can make great money. But when people were not calling, it was a downhill battle, right? Too much month at the end of the money.
Yes.
Right. That kind of situation. And my parents yelling at each other over how they're going to pay their bills.
Yes.
Right. So I didn't want to be in the construction industry, and that's where I found door to door. And luckily I fell into a door to door job, and that changed my life, because I learned how to, no matter what is going on with the economy. And I remember this is in 2007, 2008, when the economy crashed, in the last big crash. 86% unemployment. It was like people were going crazy. 14% unemployment, all this stuff. And I remember the owner of that company saying, hey, you got 14% unemployed, but 86% are working still.
Yeah.
That's who we're going to go knock on their doors, and we're going to go get those people. And it changed my perspective on the industry. And I learned at that time that door to door is recession proof. It doesn't matter what's going on in the economy. You can always make money walking down any street. You know, you can't go into a neighborhood right now, anywhere in any part of the country, and construction is not going on.
Right.
Somebody's fixing their house.
Have to.
You know, you have to. So it's either you're going to be there to provide that service for a customer, or your competition is.
Exactly. No, I like that point too. And that's where I'm going to plug Lead Scout right now. Lead Scout is a canvassing app, and it either, you know, a regular door-to-door company can use it. But what's really cool about it is like, if you're into retail, right? And I think what retail has done, at least up north, it's created what's called lead babies. They're used to the phone ringing. What Lead Scout has developed is an app where it kind of holds your team accountable. So every time a lead comes in, the app generates 20 addresses of owner-occupied houses with their name and address.
Really?
Yes. And they give you a Post-it. You can put a QR code on it. You can put, hey, I'm Ty with TC Backer Construction. We're doing a job down the street. Or you can put a QR code on there that has roofers QR code on there, so they get an instant quote right away. So if they're not comfortable with like knocking doors, or let's say nobody's home, let's say they do knock the door, they come to the door, do your spiel. If they're not home, leave a Post-it. I'm Jamie, I'm Ty, whoever with TC Backer Construction. We're doing a job down the street. Would you like a free quote? Hit the QR code, get an instant quote in 30 seconds, right? So within the app, you can qualify or disqualify it, like not a good house, meaning already have a roof, already have windows, already have siding. Or you can disqualify it, or you can qualify it and put tags in there. Hit this house, put a Post-it note on it, spoke to the homeowner, is interested in financing.
You know, it's funny because everything that you're talking about is technology driven.
It is.
Right?
Yes.
And that's one of the, I was at a conference with one of Grant Cardone's representatives, and he was talking about how you scale, and it was amazing because it took you from under $1 million, 1 to 3 million, 3 to 5, 5 to 10, 10 to basically 15. It was like 15 to 35.
Wow.
And it said in each one, it was a description of where your company is based on that revenue.
Yes.
And what you need to do in order to scale it to the next one.
Yes.
It was incredible, right? And so like once you've done it before, you understand the patterns that are necessary. So, and it was interesting because you see that on a screen and you go, well, our company is right about there. And it was amazing because we were at that point where you have systems and processes, right, to get to a certain level that gets you from 1 to 3 to 3 to 5 million, right? Once you start developing those systems and processes, then you have core leadership, building that core leadership team of managers and depth in your roster and your employees. And each level, it just keeps growing, and you can see it and know where you've been. From us, we're like, wow. So we're in the 20 to 30 million range. Like, okay, that's exactly where we're at right now, and that's what we're doing. It's amazing.
Yes,
right.
That's a good feeling,
and
to know you're kind of doing it right, or for the most part, doing it right.
Well, what was exciting was it was so accurate to like the things that I remember as we scaled to that point, that I knew as long as we continue to follow the map, we can get there.
Right on.
Right. And so that's what's exciting. It wasn't necessarily for what we've done before. I don't need a pat on the back, right? We're on a mission,
right?
But it's for where we're trying to go, and that map is there.
Yeah.
And all you have to do is, if you learn, that goes back to these events, like you learn from people who are already doing it.
Yes.
There's companies in here that do hundreds and hundreds of $1 million a year in roofing. Right. Or solar companies, or these different
restoration, fire, water. Yeah.
In order to build an organization at that level, the amount of automation, the amount of processes and procedures and standardization in every line of your organization is critical. And I think that's where a lot of the companies, they don't see that. They don't understand that there's actually a roadmap. It's not just, you don't have to just start off and just try to figure it out. There's a roadmap for a business, no matter what the type of business is, to scale to $100 million. There's a roadmap.
Right.
And, and I took a picture of it on the screen, and I shared it with our team, and like, this is what we're going to do right here. Right. Like it's simplify it, right? Because everybody wants to be successful. Everybody wants to provide for their family the best they can. Everybody wants these things, but how to get there that's the cloud.
Yes.
That's the big dust cloud in the sky. And so if you can provide that vision for people, it's like, people look at us and our company and we say, wow, you guys are an adjuster, you guys are a contractor, you guys are a solar company. Like you throw in all these things on the solar financing. That's really cool. Can you show me how to do it? Like, sure, we can teach you some stuff on how to sell it. But what, teach, it's that whole teach a man a fish or give him a fish, right? Like we can teach you, we can give you a fish. That's how you sell.
Right. You eat for today.
Right. But how you build an organization that provides lasting value over a long period of time.
Yes.
That takes systems and procedures and
SOPs.
Right. And
what it does is, again, you have to edge out the ego a little bit and invest. The best investment is in yourself. And it sounds like to me like you've invested in yourself quite a bit, right? And for your team, but somebody that would want to be consulted, they gotta realize and put the ego down. Like, I have to invest in myself. It's time. Right. And I don't think it's ever too early or ever too late to actually like reinvest in yourself.
Never.
Or invest in yourself. Sometimes you got to reinvest in yourself.
We just did. We just hired a consultant. Right. Because we have our executive leadership team, and there's some dysfunction there. And so he had us read the 5 dysfunctions of a team. And it was an incredible read. And it really puts in perspective, because you can't read that book and not put yourself in one of those positions.
Yes.
Right. I don't know if you've ever read that book or know what that is. It's a good one.
Yeah.
And it really puts a perspective on where you are in your position in the company and your team. And it's told in a story form.
Yes.
So like they make up a company. It's a Silicon Valley kind of startup technology company. I think it's called Technology Company. Anyway, they have all these characters, and it's very realistic in how the characters interact with each other and the dysfunctions that happen. And this is like a top tier company, best executives in the industry, but there's still dysfunction. And so we actually, our mentor had us read that book, and then we talked about it. We actually went through, there's a workbook afterwards that works through identifying strengths and weaknesses just so you can align your team. One of the biggest reasons why companies don't succeed is because everyone's doing this. Everyone's running in every direction, and nobody's aligned in their goals.
You got to get everybody rowing in the same direction.
And so, investing in yourself and in your team is so vital, right? Because
absolutely, you have to.
You don't even need that many people. People think you need thousands of employees. You don't need thousands of employees to become successful. No. You need a couple people that are literally rowing in the same direction.
Yes, to keep the other parts of the team rowing in the right direction too. And that's where it's so cool, is that we don't have to do this as CEOs by ourselves. We just have to align ourselves with the right people that believe in what the same mission that we're trying to accomplish, right? Like whatever your mission is, like you've shared that story with several people in your organization. Now they're spreading, it's the trickle down effect. I call it the trickle down effect, where now it's trickling down to the other people that they manage, right? And that's probably the hardest thing, because I think as entrepreneurs, especially early on, I think we bite off more than we can chew. I think for most of us that have become successful or are driven, right, we'll try to take on too much ourselves. We try to do everything ourselves, and we're not very good at delegating stuff. But if we can align ourselves with people that are just as driven as we are, that their core values meet, personal core values align, right? Because you got to be around good energy, right? At least for me. And we've put ourselves in a position where it's like I've been able to hand select people, or been blessed with people that have shown up in my life today that just I gel well with. I mean, we've traveled with the guys here behind the tool belt and at TC Backer, to just be around the people. We kind of pick and choose who we want to be around today, because their core values have to match our core values, their energy. We let somebody go about a year ago. They did a good job. They were good at their job, but they didn't fit our culture. Right. And it was a tough decision. So we had core values that we follow. Right. There was 3 out of the 4 core values. They just didn't align there with us. So we approached her, and I don't want to say any names because she did a good job, but she just didn't fit, because we hire based upon our core values, and we let go based upon our core values. So I approached her, and I didn't want to be mean. It was just like, unfortunately, you're not a good fit here. We'd like to give you a 2-week notice.
And how long was this person with you?
About 3 months.
Okay.
Yeah, not forever, about 3 months, because you got to give someone, technically takes based upon what job description they're filling, right? Could take 3 to 6 months sometimes.
What's unfortunate is when you have someone that's been with you for years, and then their core values start to change.
Yeah, it happens.
It happens. We're dealing with that too. And that's where it's hard, because you care about these people.
You have a personal connection with them and their family.
Yeah, you want to see them. So you don't want to fire someone who's built a career with you, Yeah. But sometimes, and that's part of making those hard decisions, because, sacrifice one person for the better of the organization. It's really about everyone, right? And no one has the right to negatively impact the opportunity or income.
Right. It's not fair to your team.
It's not.
To put them through it, because you are caring and loving. Sometimes it sucks. Sometimes that's where you got to boss up and do leadership, which is very uncomfortable sometimes, because you have to make decisions that's best for the whole, for the greater the good, right? Even though you have a personal connection with this person, if you've tried to talk to them. Like, I've been down that road. I had a guy on for 6 or 7 years. And I had to make one of the toughest decisions I ever had to make, because on a personal level, I made a connection with this guy and his family, but there were some core values, and that made it much easier. The decision making was so much easier, but the actions to follow through with, to like actually say, listen, you're not a good fit here. And again, I don't want to get into too many details.
Yeah.
It made it a lot easier, because all I had to do was point to that plaque on the wall. Was like, unfortunately, you gave me no other choice, and all eyes are on me right now, and you're making everybody here miserable.
And it's interesting that you're saying that, because it's coming back to systems. And
yes,
I became obsessed with my sales process, the 10-step.
Yeah.
Right. I know you've heard of the 10-step.
Oh, yeah.
So I became obsessed with it. Like I'm going to force that 10 step because I learned the hard way that when you try to do it willy-nilly, you're not gonna have that success you're looking for. But if you have a process and a system, you stick to it, you'll be successful. So I became religiously attached to that 10 step, and I forced it, and that drove my sales through the ceiling. It wasn't that I was better necessarily than anybody. I just put the pressure on the system,
right.
And it's just like with core values. And if you have those systems, you create those systems in your company. Put the pressure on the system. It's not personal.
No.
Just like you're saying, like even if someone's been with you for years, you have core values. This is your system. So if someone is outside of the system, they're not playing ball. It doesn't matter. It's not personal. They are going outside the realm of the system, and it cannot be tolerated. It's not fair to the rest of the team that is, following the program.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's a good point too. And the thing is too, they probably helped you come up with those systems and processes, so it's easier to flip it back on them. Like, look, man, you're the one.
Said,
yeah, right, exactly. So that's a good point here. What time do you have to be on stage today?
2:30.
Okay, 2:30. I just wanted to make sure that we were running into any issues here. I know this might be a good place for us to wrap this up. We have a couple people, I see them walking around us, that we want to get on the show here today
100%.
as well. So, Dan,
thank you.
Always a pleasure. Hopefully we'll run into you again sometime. I'm sure probably come November, we're going to get back on the road. I think we're going to do SolarCon in Salt Lake City, but I heard that the booth space were sold out already. So I don't know about that for sure.
You're talking about for SolarCon?
Yeah, SolarCon. What did I call it?
You called it SolarCon.
Okay, yeah, SolarCon. Yeah, I heard the booth space was sold out, but maybe there's some strings we can pull.
Just want to say, just real quick, thank you for the opportunity to be on the show again. We had great feedback from the last one, and so we're excited. Anytime I see you, I'll jump on. We can grab, maybe even come to where you guys are at. And where's the headquarters again?
York, Pennsylvania. Actually, Dover, Pennsylvania.
Dover, Pennsylvania. I'd be happy to come out there and do the same thing, and maybe spend even more time because there's a lot of information that you guys have. I love listening to you and what you have to say, and obviously that's a two-way street
for sure.
If anyone wants help with developing the systems and processes and procedures, I'm happy. You can follow me on Instagram at dan.zrihen, Zrihen. Follow me on there. I'm happy to share and teach. And just like we talked about, I'm a believer in giving value. Obviously, when you get into a certain level, your time is kind of condensed, so you don't have a lot of time necessarily to spend with a bunch of people. But if you want to know how to build the processes, structuring, public adjusting, or contracting, or solar, we have resources that can help in any of those industries.
Yeah, that's awesome. So how else can someone reach out to you? Do you have, is it alphaarmy.com, or?
You can search alphaarmy.com. You can follow any one of our companies, Adjust Pro Solutions, ProTech Contracting, America First Energy. All of those organizations are there to help both consumers and we're advocates for other businesses as well. We work B2B just like we work, business to customer.
Awesome, man. Congratulations on your success.
Thank you.
Yep. We'll talk to you soon. All right, guys, we're going to sign out here. We'll be back shortly. Thanks for tuning in.